Jumped a little out of order, but for the Hispanic Caucus, Monsy, could you please come up and present?
Hi everyone. You also cannot see me.
Step to the side.
I do need to find my script.
Move the microphone over, step to the side.
It's somewhere in here. Okay, excellent. What do I click? Just the here? That's me. I've been living in Germany for approximately 2 years, but for 15 years of my life, I lived in the United States. When I was 9 years old, my mom and I arrived at the southern border. And unfortunately, we did not have any documents. I got to go to school in South Carolina, starting in the 3rd grade, and I remained there until 12th grade.
And you were student body president.
Yeah, I was the bee's knees. However, in South Carolina, it's illegal to go to college, even if you are a student council president. And so I didn't get to attain higher education despite my excellent grades and excellent attitude. But I attained DACA at the age of 19, and that's precisely what I want to talk to you guys about. DACA and the ongoing story of Dreamers. Now, South Carolina, my dear state, is one of the most oppressive states to Dreamers. It is called one of the lockout states, which include Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, and South Carolina. Sorry that my voice is so scratchy, I just got over a cold. Hold on just a sec. Yes. I'm just gonna hold this. That's okay. So, growing up undocumented as a young Mexican child in the South is exactly as difficult as you would think that it is. It was not great for my self-esteem. And I went to a predominantly white school where a lot of the students were also quite wealthy. So it was very difficult to have high expectations for the things that you could do. While everyone celebrated getting their driver's licenses and first jobs, I kind of just pretended that I didn't really care, and that's not something that I wanted. Because no one knew that I was undocumented, and you could not tell anyone because in the South, the children are raised to call ICE on you, and that's just something that you understand. So you don't tell anyone, not even other Latino students that you suspect to be undocumented, because then you could be outing them by accident. You could be putting them and their families in danger. 3 of my best friends growing up were actually undocumented, and we have yet to admit that to each other. I know because they're Dreamers, and I know exactly what they went through, but because they are still living in the United States, it's not something that I will ever approach with them. Ever. And it's something that I want to make very clear, because if you suspect that someone is a dreamer, if you think someone is undocumented, do not approach them. Do not comment on their Facebook and say, hey, can you clear this up for me, because you're putting them in danger. There are many people who will call immigration on them. Now, most of us grew up with the secret, and we understood that that meant we had no access to healthcare, we had no access to higher education. We couldn't really feasibly call the police whenever something happened to us, because you can be deported in the state of South Carolina, even if you are the victim of a crime. And this is just in the state of South Carolina. However, as I understand it, other lockout states keep these same laws, and throughout the United States, areas that are mainly conservative also try to make it difficult for you to exist in general. Now, it was mainly difficult to exist in South Carolina, but then something happened to us in 2012. DACA was passed, and because we couldn't go outside without documents available, such as driver's license or passport that said you were a U.S. citizen, you could be detained and instantly deported by anyone. So we didn't go out much. We were allowed out from the shadows, however, when DACA was passed, because suddenly we actually had the ability to get driver's licenses. We had right to work licenses, and we were actually able to attain higher education. This is a young student fighting for DACA rights, which apparently has been recited since 2 years ago. Through DACA, you are able to work, you are able to seek higher education. However, in states like South Carolina, say you want to become a lawyer, you can go to school and take all the classes to become a lawyer, spend as many years as you want studying, but you're not allowed to take the bar exam. And you're not allowed to get certification for it. You're not allowed to become a nurse. You're not allowed to attain the rights to open up your own business. And this is true for all the other lockout states as well. This is another dreamer that I got to hang out with in South Carolina. He is an artivist. He's an artist, and he dedicates most of his art towards furthering Latino rights and also speaking out for dreamers. He's a very outspoken dreamer. He is not afraid of being out and undocumented, which is truly admirable because I could not do that when I lived in South Carolina. When he was undocumented, which he's been living in the US since he was 3 years old, and now he's 33, so that was like the majority of his life. He had to work in a minimum wage job as an under-the-table busboy. But after DACA, he was actually able to get his education, and now he is the manager of 5 different restaurants in South Carolina, which means that he doesn't have to live in poverty anymore, and he's actually trying to become a homeowner very soon. Ariana Castro, when DACA came out, she had just come out of school. She's a year younger than I am. And because of DACA, she was actually able to go to a different state, Delaware, and now she is studying to be a nurse. Eduardo Samaniego is one of my favorite people of all time. He is a very outspoken activist for DACA. He's been on CNN, he's talked to Cory Booker, he's met ex-presidents, he's done it all. And then something happened, which I'm sure we all remember. The election brought about certain changes. And I'm sure we all know about when DACA was rescinded. Due to the election, these weren't policies that were necessarily enacted, but there was a certain emboldenment that came about from the far right, from ICE, from immigration in general. And it started targeting activists. Now, one of the most outspoken activists was Eduardo. He was placed into ICE custody during his routine checkup, which means every 2 years you have to renew your DACA, you have to go get your biometrics. During that, as he was renewing his DACA, he was detained and he was put into a for-profit facility in South Carolina for 106 days. 3 of those weeks were in solitary confinement. Several of those days he was put into torture, which is what ICE does for people who are activists. They call them hieleras, which is ice boxes that they keep you in until you refuse to talk anymore, basically until you stop moving. Everyone who was a dreamer who knew about Eduardo's case did everything they possibly could. There was the Eduardo campaign, Save Eduardo campaign, which went and met with senators, with representatives. They met with President Jimmy Carter and had him sign the petition to have him released, to show that he was an outstanding resident of the United States. However, ICE refused to hold a trial for him, and without any processing at all, he was deported on February 1st of 2019. Alejandra Pablos is also a very a very outspoken activist. She is very for the rights of women and the rights to choose. Because she is an outspoken activist, right now she is battling her own deportation. This is just something that she is writing about, having to fight her own deportation, despite the fact that her mom is a US citizen, and she was in the process of attaining her green card. They won't break us, but they do hurt us deeply, even in our pockets. For the first time in my entire life, I'm thinking of what my life would be in another country. I know wherever we go, I will speak up for women and girls. I will rise up against injustices. I will challenge the patriarchy and its systems of oppression. I will be next to the common masses demanding dignity and justice, because I know that my liberation is tied to Black women and girls everywhere. I may not know what will be of these next years in the appeal process, but I gotta remind y'all, I was born for this and I can't back down. I am not an official member of the Hispanic Caucus. I'm not a US citizen. Don't worry, I'm not giving you guys any money. Making sure of that. But my husband is the chair of the Germany Hispanic Caucus, and that's what we're trying to work with. You can get involved with us if you would like. I'm going to do several workshops this year on United We Dream. They are for dreamers. If you want to donate so that dreamers can pay their $500 renewal fee, then you can donate to them. I'm going to try to spread more information on how to keep Alejandra there in the United States. She's still trying to win the appeal. You can find out more about Eduardo. I'm going to post more information on him. I want to do a postcard writing. It's not necessarily only to legislators and representatives. It's also going to be to people who are currently being held in ICE detention facilities. There is actually several postcards that have been designed by undocumented immigrants, and these postcards are specifically designed to be sent to people in detention facilities to show them that there are people out there trying to support them. You can support also HR 6. This is specifically designed for TPS holders and DACA people. It's trying to give them a path to citizenship so they don't have to worry about these things anymore. And you can support the DREAM Act, which is the same thing but for DACA-minted people. I'm going to be conducting interviews with dreamers and with other undocumented immigrants, which I will be posting, so that you can learn more about these people from their own experiences. And the most important thing you can do, if you want people like me to not be put in ice boxes, if you want people like Alejandra to have a chance to live in the country that they grew up with, if you want activists like me, like you, to have a chance to use their voices, then please vote. And I'm not kidding, you cannot just let it off. You can't just allow yourself to say maybe because my state is mainly Republican, it's not going to matter. It matters. My state is South Carolina, and it was something like 96 for Trump, 96%. But I knew that the 4% voted Democrat because it was rooting for people like me. And I focused myself on that 4%. Because it may not sound like a lot, but those 4% were my friends who were rooting for me, who were showing me that they support me and that they care about the challenges that we're facing and the kind of life that I can have versus the life that we do have. Those are my references. You can fact check.